Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Barbara Etienne with Project Kin, and I'm delighted to welcome you to another one of our episodes of Emma Explores with Emma Cox. These are a special series where we dive into family history, taking specifically from the perspective of a professional genealogist, Emma Cox in the UK, with her unique skill set and access to records that we may very well never have thought of, never mind looking at them in terms of themes. And today she's picking up on military history. So, Emma, do you want to go ahead and take it away?
Thank you. I will just share the screen. Give me a moment. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so today the theme is researching military ancestors. And I don't know that we've met before, so just briefly, Barbara said I'm based in the UK. I am a family historian, genealogist, got lots of different things I'm interested in, love doing DNA, finding living relatives, that sort of thing, even taking people on tours. So I have a lot of different aspects to what I do. I've also got a podcast called Journeys into Genealogy, and there's over 125 episodes on there at the moment, including one with Barbara, which happens to be the most popular one, which is great. And today, so we're going to go and trace some World War II and World War I military ancestors. Now, this picture on the left-hand side is actually of my family. And I have to say, apart from the lady in the middle, who's my great-grandmother, Ada, I don't actually know who any of the other people are. I've got to try and do some digging and to try and identify potential regiments. I know there's Navy in there, there's Army in there, there's potentially cadets and all sorts of different things. And I don't know whether some of the people in the front are daughters of the family because they had a few children, or whether they're cousins. There's all sorts of things. So this is an area I have yet to explore in a lot of detail. I do believe that the person sitting next to her is not her husband. I think it might be her cousin. I've got to confirm that. But I just thought it's an amazing picture because you've got so many different military people sitting in that one. Today, we are going to do some different people. So we're going to hop over the pond. We're going to go to Canada. We're going to go to New Zealand, and we're also going to stay in the UK with the father of the RAF, which is the Royal Air Force, for anybody who's not familiar with that. And we're going to start in New Zealand. Now, there's a family called Wyshaw, and they had 11 children. So there were John Henley Wyshaw, who was born in Russia, and his wife, Catherine Elizabeth Guthrie. She was born in New Zealand. He moved from Russia. He came back briefly to England and then went out to New Zealand. He met her. They got married, had a lot of children. Now, they're not directly related to me, but he's the brother-in-law of my second cousin 3 times removed, part of the wider family. And I always like exploring the wider family because you never know what you're going to discover as part of that. So this is the first person I'd like to talk about. This lady's name is Mabel Helen Wyshaw. Now, she was born in 1883, and she unfortunately died in 1918. And she was in a place called Kakaramea, and forgive the pronunciation, it's probably completely wrong, in Taranaki in New Zealand. She became a nurse, as you can see in the photograph, and she worked at a place called the Featherstone Military Hospital. And she started there in 1916, and then she was promoted from staff nurse up to sister in April 1918. And unfortunately, 1918 was very well known for one particularly unfortunate illness that travelled the world, which was the Spanish flu. And it hit New Zealand, and 2,500 people in the hotel and the hospital were ill, and the hospital was overwhelmed. And if anybody wants to find out more about the Spanish flu, I included a little link to it there. And she died, unfortunately, after contracting the flu. I don't think it was a great surprise, being in close contact with everybody in that sort of situation. So she died on the 10th of November. And down the bottom there, that shows the World War I Army Roll of Honour. So she's a staff nurse, still there, staff nurse stroke sister. I'm not sure exactly the rank. So she died from accident occurring or disease contracted while training with or attached to the New Zealand Expeditionary Force in New Zealand. And this is a record here that came from Ancestry. So Ancestry is very good for New Zealand records. She's also on the Army Roll of Honor there. So that's not a terribly good picture, but she and actually two of her brothers are also on that one. And part of the Commonwealth War Graves. And her service number was 22/371. And if you want to find out more about her, this is a link directly to her entry on the Lives of the First World War website as part of the Imperial War Museum in England. So Barbara's got the slides and she'll circulate them afterwards, which has got all the links in. So if you want to click on anything afterwards, please do go and investigate. So this is a little detail there of showing her as part of the Commonwealth War Grave. So it says that she's the daughter born at Kakamarea in Wanganui. And they actually did award her a medal. So the New Zealand RN, so a registered nurse, New Zealand registered nurse. So she was then buried in the Wairarapa. And she's got quite an extensive find a grave entry on there as well. And there's an interesting entry on Ancestry again for the cemetery records from the Wairarapa there. And I've just focused in on hers, and her brothers, who we're going to talk about in a minute, are actually on the same page there. And this is her gravestone. So the first of her brothers, his name was Harry. He was born in 1885 and he went to Gallipoli. And I think everybody knows that Gallipoli wasn't exactly a good place for the Australian and the New Zealand Army. And he served with the Wellington Infantry Battalion. He was also in Egypt and in Western Europe. He was wounded twice at Gallipoli, first on the 27th of April with a bullet to the neck, and then in August with shrapnel in his hand. He reached the rank of a lance sergeant. And then, unfortunately, he was killed in action in France on the 3rd of July, 1916. He was only 31. And according to the local paper, this is the Otago Witness, he was a young man of splendid physique and had a most genial nature. He's almost the first man to enlist in Featherstone and was in the Dardanelles landing operations shortly afterwards being severely wounded. After 2 months' treatment in a hospital in Egypt, he returned to Gallipoli and was again wounded and sent to England, where he remained for 6 months. On recovery, he went to France, where he laid down his life after nearly 2 years of strenuous service for his country. So he served in lots and lots of different places. And this is his memorial. There's a couple of links there, one to find a grave and one to the New Zealand War Graves site. And I actually found this. This is his cigarette case, which is in the main New Zealand Te Papa Museum in Wellington. And it's actually got his signature on there from Gallipoli in 1915. Now, Harry and Mabel's brother, his name was Bernard. And he was born in 1893. He was the youngest of the family. Remember, there was about 10 siblings there. And unfortunately, he died in Egypt in 1918 and is buried in Cairo. And there's an article all about him. And I think his nickname was Hardy. Not quite sure why. But he died at the 27th General Hospital in Cairo of malarial pneumonia. So he didn't directly die of his wounds, but he obviously contracted malarial pneumonia as a part of it, maybe due to the unsanitary conditions is the most likely cause of that. So on his gravesite, it says that he was a trooper in the New Zealand Mounted Machine Gun Squadron, and he was only 26. His service number. And if you actually do a search for him, lots and lots of different entries come up, and far more than for his siblings. And there's other memorials, links to other sites, and he actually gained some medals, the 1914-15 Star, the British War Medal, and the Victory Medal. Some of those were awarded to people who just took part in the war, not specifically for doing something particularly brave, but just for actually taking part. Now, there was actually a fourth brother. His name was James Henley Whishaw, and he was born in 1881, but he stayed in the military reserve in New Zealand, and he was never actually called up to fight. He stayed in New Zealand. He survived the war, and his gravesite is again in the same cemetery there, and there's a link to it. And he's shown there as he married a lady called Harriet Edith Isabel, and he died in 1959 and she died in 1955. So he had a long life after the war. So three siblings died during the war and one survived it. So that's quite a blow for an individual family there. Now we're going to a completely different country. We're going across the pond. We're going to Canada. We're starting actually in England. So Frank Bradshaw Japp was born in Canada after his parents emigrated from England. And unfortunately, his mother died when he was born. And it's a bit strange when I started looking into him. So he was sent back to live with his grandparents. He had an older sister who then went to live with another relative. And then his father remarried. And then they had more children out in Canada. He somehow went back to England and then brought him back with him. Now, he wasn't a rich man, the father, so I'm not quite sure how this happened, whether he had support from the wider family or something to actually pay for the journey on the ship back and forth. But yeah, he left England when he was very young, and he came back. Sorry, he left Canada to come to England when he was very young, and he came back to Canada aged 8. So unfortunately, yes, he died again in 1918. He was 21. So they're getting younger. Terrible, the ages of some of the people who died during the war. But what we can find out about him is we have what they call an attestation paper. So this is a paper that somebody had to complete, and they had to answer it truthfully, and they had to give lots and lots of information before somebody could actually decide that they were fit to serve, i.e. they were actually healthy. They weren't excluded for any particular reason. So over here you can say, have you ever served in any military force? Do you understand what you're going to be doing? Are you willing to be attested to serve? And then you get things like, what's your trade? So he's a farm labourer. You've got his address of next of kin. So that's his father, Frank Japp there. And it gives his current address. And then you'll see he signs it and various other people sign it as well, including the magistrate. So he joined the Canadian Infantry, the West Ontario Regiment, and served in the 47th Battalion. He died of shrapnel wounds. Now, that might not sound terribly bad, but shrapnel is basically when a shell explodes and the pieces of the shell go in different directions. Now, I didn't really understand what it meant by shrapnel wounds, compound fracture, femur, right hand and back. So femur is your arm, your right hand and back. But asking my other half, he suggested that the actual shell had gone off behind him and then it had gone towards him. So very unfortunately, he then died as a result of those wounds. He has a burial and memorial in the Aubigny Communal Cemetery Extension in France. There's a grave reference number there. And on the veterans site for Canada there's a book of remembrance, and he's actually there and it's highlighted on the screen. I thought it was beautifully illustrated there, and lots of other people mentioned. Then we're coming back to England for our final person here. So this gentleman's name is Hugh Montague Trenchard, and he's called the father of the RAF. He is my fourth cousin 3 times removed. Very, very interesting character here. He reached the rank of Air Marshal, he was knighted, he became a Viscount, all sorts of things. And he was really significant in military history in England. He started off and he was in the army, and he was a casualty of the Boer War, wounded in a place called Dwars-Levi, I think that's pronounced correctly, whilst the captain in the 2nd Battalion of the Royal Scots Fusiliers. And one of the things to bear in mind is the battalions that people served in made no real relevance to the places that people came from. Sometimes people signed up and went to a local battalion. Sometimes they ended up in one that was completely different to the name. So it's like, I think one of mine is in Wolverhampton or something like that. And it's like, I have no idea why he would be actually serving as part of that. There's a lot of information about him online, obviously, because he was a significant person. So that's the Wikipedia entry there if anybody wants to find out more. So in 1912, after serving in the army and being wounded, he learned to fly. So he was part of the Army and Navy Club, which still exists in Pall Mall in London. And it gives information there that he was born in Taunton, he's British, and that he took his certificate on a farm and biplane at the Sopwith School in Brooklands. Now, Brooklands is actually right next to where my grandfather grew up. And I've got pictures of some of the people actually in aeroplanes there. Amazing. By 1914, he's the head of the Royal Flying Corps. At the time, just a part of the army. The RAF didn't exist. It started off as part of the army. By 1918, he was a major general and appointed chief of the air staff of the newly formed RAF and was knighted in that year. He appears on the Roll of Honour, and there's various ancestry military records about him and all sorts of other things. Now, one of the interesting things about him is that when he started off, he was injured, as it says in the top there. He was a casualty of the Boer War, and he was injured in a couple of different places. And he wasn't a particularly strong man, I don't think. And he ended up going off to Switzerland. And I found an article all about him, and it said that he was paralyzed. He lost part of a lung and he was paralyzed. And he went bobsleighing. Why you would do such a thing if you're paralyzed and you've lost half a lung, really not sure. But it was the best thing he could have done because he crashed. And when he crashed, he found he wasn't paralyzed anymore. And so he could walk, and then he carried on. So it's an amazing story. So I do recommend reading his story because it's just fascinating. And that's just a picture there of him inspecting some troops. Now, there's a couple of other things I just want to say there. So he was the head of the RAF. He set up the School of Engineers. So he realized that one of the things that held back the any potential army or navy or air force was having engineers or people to maintain the equipment that you used. So he set up the engineering college. He also set up the police college at Hendon. So that's still in use today. And so he was amazing. So please have a read of him and just see what you can find out about him and appreciate what he did, I think is the best way of putting it. And I also found things like there's actually a video of his wedding. I'm going to just try and run this here. Hopefully it'll work. Just have to wait for it to do its security check. And this is the wedding march. So this is 1920 at St. Margaret's in Westminster. And you can see they've got all the people with the bagpipes ready to pipe them down the road. And then there's a second one here, which is a memorial to him when he died. Sorry, I had to start it. Thought it was starting automatically.
These are all silent films, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
Listen, that was Macmillan, I think, her Prime Minister.
Is this sculpture still standing?
Yep.
And those bobbies were there because he was also, as you say, the police college? The earlier.
A lovely little video there, and just brings it to life, really, just so people appreciate what he did. So he's actually buried in Westminster Abbey in London, and there's a commemoration for him there. And each year, people do lay a wreath on the anniversary of his death. I'll just show you there. Nice picture of him here. And then there's various other people there as well. This is a really good site, the Westminster Abbey website here. If you have any ancestors who are likely to have been buried there, there's generally some information about them. So if you've got military ancestors and you want to find out more about them, I just put together some information showing how you can find out and what you're likely to be able to get. Be patient. There's a big backlog in terms of doing this, and it may take a year to actually get someone's military records. Some are available online, and increasingly more are being made available online. That tends to be for older people. And a lot of it may be redacted, so blacked out, hidden in some way, because it might be sensitive. The person might, for example, have been a spy or have worked on some secret missions or something like that, where they don't want people to find out about that. And there's the 100-year rule. So depending on what it is, if it's super secret, might never be revealed. If it's over 100 years ago, you might get more information about it. Obviously, nothing for the from the 1920s onwards is available yet. So you might find things out about the First World War, but you definitely won't find anything about the Second World War. So if you want to do that, that's a link through, and it gives full instructions. And on there's actually a downloadable guide which tells you what you need to do. If you want somebody where it's a more recent history, you can get those. If it's someone who is less than 100 years old, as in they were born since 1926 onwards, you can get them, but you may need to produce a death certificate and to prove that they are no longer around and give your relation to them why you actually want that information. Some records are now being given to the National Archives, and that's a link there saying what they've actually got available on the National Archives. So the other ones are part of the military, which is operated by the government, and then this is operated by the National Archives. There are various other places that you might be fortunate enough to find out information. So there's the National Army Museum, the Imperial War Museum, the Army Personnel Centre, and the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. So all of those, there's links on there how to find people. So have a look on there and see if you can use any of that information to find your relatives or ancestors. And if you want help doing that, there's a gentleman called Graham Bandy, who I have actually interviewed on the podcast a while ago. He has a website called livingmilitaryhistory.com, and he works as a professional genealogist. And he can help you find out all sorts of different things if you want him to do some investigation on your behalf, find somebody, because he's a former military man himself. And I just wanted to mention that there are 2 episodes on the podcast that might be useful to you. So I did an interview with the Orders and Medals Research Society, and that's where they talk about the different medals, who was entitled to have them. So officers got different medals to the regular army or the Navy or the Air Force. And they got there's a guide on there as well, and I put an information on Substack about that, about the different types of medals. And then the interview that I did with Graham is also available there. So those are links directly to look at those if you want to do that. What helped me with my research? Well, there are loads of websites here, so we'll nip through them relatively quickly. Find a Grave, everyone should be familiar with that one. Ancestry. So I used Ancestry mainly for the New Zealand information. So they've got birth, death, cemetery, medical practitioners, and electoral rolls there. The Wairarapa Heritage Site. This is where I started with the information on the Wyshaw siblings. Now, when I looked at it, somebody had done a tour, a little mini tour of the local area, mentioning their graves and things like that. But that particular part of the website has disappeared, so I didn't put a link into that. So if you want to go and actually have a look at it, there's information there about the local area and war records in general. The Auckland Museum. So there's an online cenotaph as part of that. A website called Genealogy Investigations. Now, I think that they might have been the people that did the tour on the Wairarapa. The Armed Forces Roll of Honour, British Pathé for those videos that we just watched. Westminster Abbey, Veterans of Canada. On Ancestry, there's another link to the Web Canada Virtual War Memorial Index and the Commonwealth War Graves Registers and the Canadian Expeditionary Force attestation papers. Finally, Google searches. You can't go wrong if you start off with a Google search and just put the person's name in there and see what comes up. If the person's done something significant, if they've been particularly brave, if they've won a medal or something like that, they might just appear in a Google search. Now, alongside that, there are some books which are pretty good. There's a guy called Simon Fowler. Now, he's written 4 books here, tracing your First World War ancestors, Second World War, Army, and Navy. And you can get all of those as Kindle editions, or if you want to find a new one or a secondhand version, they're on places like A Books or things like that. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you should be able to find all of those. And he's actually doing a course on researching your military ancestors starting in June. So it's a Pharos course, so it's likely to be about £60. The format is generally that it takes place over a 4 or 5 week period. As part of that, you will meet up once a week. You'll get handouts. You'll be expected to do some homework, which is generally looking in your own family and finding people who might fit the categories that you're actually looking for. But I highly recommend that. Pharos tutors have been very good. I did their intermediate certificate a couple of years ago, and there's lots and lots of different courses on there. But this military ancestors one, I think, is a good idea for anybody who's interested. And it's just a way of giving you sources that you might not be aware of, giving you tips on doing different things, and the handout's always very good. So that's it for today. I've whizzed through that quite quickly. Any questions?
Fantastic. I know it certainly has me inspired thinking about when I did my research to tell the story about my own Revolutionary War family on the Quaker side. There is one who famously, was a pacifist and yet was decorated as an American Revolutionary War veteran. Well, he didn't do any fighting, but he participated in this, made a makeshift hospital out of his home. It turned out that his first cousins or something, were very active on the Loyalist side. One of them went on to become an admiral in the Napoleonic Wars, and a baron, which blows me away. And I was thinking of you, Anne, all the way through this. I don't recall now. I'm all excited about the kind of research that can be discovered. And your mother's story, is it your grandmother's story? Is
It's
that
my
right?
grandmother's story, yes. She was not in the military. She worked for places like British Intelligence and the Pilgrim Society, and she did a lot of different war efforts. She ran the American Officers Club and all sorts of stuff like that. I do not know if her husband was in the military. She eventually left him, came to Canada, hence why we're here. But she had a lot of newspaper clippings of the battle, and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Ypres, Ypres. So it's possible he was in it. I know he didn't die. He didn't die until the 50s. But that's the sort of military side. On my father's side, there are many, many more in the military, but not
Maybe
where I'm
this could
going
be
right
helpful.
now.
Well, maybe this could be helpful for you. Welcome, Kyla. It's good to see you.
Yes.
Bill's
Good.
question is a Viscount a hereditary position? No, he was awarded that for his service.
Mm.
Very cool.
Mm.
I think, military service in my view is this whole language of rank and orders and all of the complexities of these relationships as it carries right down into the grave sites and what is and medals and whatnot. And it's wonderful to have access to these resources and pointers that we can deduce for other countries, for example, of where and how things are done. My mom's late husband was an American naval captain by rank. He was actually an attorney in the JAG service, the attorney's service, and yet that makes him a captain. What is that? How does that even work? So shows how naive I am. But it was quite something to participate in his service when he passed at a national cemetery in the was not the same kind of thing by any means to the pomp and circumstance with prime ministers attending, as you saw for your cousin. Jennifer, you're on mute.
My usual trick. I love that, Emma. I've really had a lot of trouble researching my military ancestors in England. It's just so different to the way we research them in Australia, or seems to be. So I'll be definitely going to your list there. I had one that was he was got to brigadier, and I've had no trouble researching him because he was well decorated and, you know, obviously very important. um, Actually, when he retired, he became the gold stick to the king. So, do you know anything about gold stick? From what I read, it's like a head security officer, security guard, like we would say today.
Yeah, I haven't really looked into it, but I'm aware that it exists. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that it still does exist. Yeah.
Oh, really? Right.
Head stick?
Gold stick.
Gold
stick.
Stick.
Yeah. It's a funny title, isn't it? But he travelled everywhere with the king then after that. But so I had no trouble researching him, but World War One, I was just a little bit lost where to go and what to do, and I sort of muddled around and spent a lot of time looking. But now I've got to focus, so thank you for that. Yeah.
Okay, so just give you a little bit of information. The gold stick and silver stick are formal bodyguard positions in the royal household, the British royal household, serving as personal attendants to the sovereign.
Yes. Yeah.
And they do still exist. Lieutenant General Sir Edward Smith Osborne, the regimental colonel of the Life Guards and Gold Stick in waiting during the coronation procession of Charles III.
Right. Yeah.
And actually, Princess Anne is a gold stick in waiting as well.
Yes, I did see that. Yes.
Yeah.
So does that mean, how does that work? Because her being the royal family, I can't work out.
It's serving the sovereign. It's not being part of the royal family. It's serving the sovereign.
Right. Okay. Yes. Right. Yep.
And the silver stick is the commander of the household cavalry and the deputy assistant to the gold stick in waiting. And they do things like they might welcome in the arrival of a head of state on a state visit or something like that.
Yeah. So it was interesting to see some of his writings because he went everywhere with the king and went to dinners and, public events and everything. So that side of it was really interesting to sort of read his bits and pieces that are. Sorry?
Are you going to write him up?
Oh, most definitely. I've begun. I've been doing it for a period of time and put it on the back burner, but now you've got me all inspired to get it out there. Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Jennifer,
exactly.
Jennifer, which king was it? King George the Sixth or the Fifth?
Yes.
The Sixth?
Oh, I think the Sixth. The Sixth. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
What were the years of the reigns of, when did King George VI take over? Does anyone, do you remember, Emma? Or?
In the 30s. In the 30s.
Oh, well, no, it's the fifth. It's the fifth.
So King George V.
Because he had died by then, Yeah, it's interesting.
Anybody got any other family stories?
Actually, what I'm thinking about the absence of stories that I just didn't know to look. That's really, to me, the inspiring part is realizing, what did you do? My dad, I know, served at first in the Merchant Marines, and then the Korean War, but it was not a part really of his life other than stories about cold.
Yeah.
Sorry, Linda.
I know from my little town where I came from, of about 200 people, there were a lot of people served, like men and women, from First World and Second World and Korean wars. A lot.
Yeah.
Most came back, a few didn't. Few were, but none are my relations, of course. But yeah.
Mm.
But from
Just
one
made me
little
think
town,
of a
it
couple.
seemed that a lot of
Yeah.
people, from Saskatchewan. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in a lot of instances, whole generations of young men were wiped out, weren't they, in certain places? And that's why you get
Absolutely.
lots of women who didn't marry because the men weren't around to be husbands.
Yeah.
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 Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
And
wanted to
families
just
with
mention,
brothers.
yes,
Sorry.
like the
Yeah.
one I had there. Yeah. I just wanted to mention a couple of other things here because I've been playing around with the AI recently and trying to see how it can help me with doing things. So when I was looking for people to include in this, I basically downloaded a GEDCOM file from my family tree. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's basically a file that can go across any ancestry software or anything like that. And I thought, okay, well, can I ask AI to find military people from it? I tried with Google Gemini, and I have to say, it didn't work. I had arguments with Google Gemini because it brought up 12 people and all sorts of different things. And so it's like, I gave up on that. I think I ended up using something called Perplexity and doing it. And I said, go away and find all the people who've had military service in my tree. And it came back with a list of various different ones. And that's definitely how I found Frank Japp. He was part of that list there. So think about doing that, taking what information you've got and interrogating it using AI.
Yeah.
And a couple of other things. I did an interview with Duff Wilson, a family tree maker, and I published that on the 11th of February. There's an offer there if anyone wants to get family tree maker, they want to use it. There's about £40 off. And what he was saying is one of the future things that they're looking at doing is on Ancestry, you've got tags. Has anybody used the tags on there? So you can tag somebody with military service, you can tag them as being all sorts of different things. And he is hoping that at some point that will then be something that you can actually pull out using Family Tree Maker. So you'll be able to do a report on military service using Family Tree Maker. It can't do it at the moment, but that's one of the things that they're looking at doing in a future release, hopefully fairly soon, because he said they have been in discussion with Ancestry about that.
Very interesting. I know that weare.xyz is adding features relating to GEDCOM files. They've been limited in the past, but the ability to update your GEDCOM files from there. And I don't know anything, since it's very new work that they're doing, whether it's pulling in any kinds of things such as tagging. There's a lot of tagging within the system already, their own tagging. But in the context of stupid AI tricks that you would not have expected, the Genea bloggers hosted Steve Little for a remarkable talk on Sunday, this past Sunday, our time, Monday, your time. And he has a fancy way of creating a downloadable handout that leverages in the conversation as well. All of that is available on the Genea bloggers Substack, which I just posted the link in there too as well. It's mind-bogglingly good and a great way to be jumping across without having to pay a lot to go get a course to go figure out what to do, but rather give you what you need to know with a lot of unexpected things. And this emphasis is on well, I'll let him go ahead and explain that, but the angle on the talk is looking at AI beyond a spell checker, the kinds of things that I do with Grammarly or whatever the hell it's called now, and stepping in to do it like you did with take a look at my GEDCOM and tell me. Brilliant
what I
use.
also did is I on Gemini, there's an AI chat exporter, Gemini to PDF and different things. And you can get it for different things like ChatGPT, and it was about $30 or something like that. And basically that then allows you to download the entire chat. And you can actually, it will format it in a PDF document and it will give you a table of contents. So it will say the questions you've asked, the answers you've got, and things like that. So today I had a client send me through some information, and he said, "This is my entire tree," and it's like 122 pages, and it's like, okay, and I don't, and I skimmed 122 pages and thought, what can I do with this? So basically, I put it into Google Gemini. I said, find all instances of this family name and give me their dates of birth and everything like that, and place of birth. Plop. A few minutes later, well, not even a few minutes, a couple of minutes later, I've got a list of all that. Find all the people born in this place. And then it brought a few other people into it. And then basically I just exported that. And that took about 10 minutes. Yeah. So rather than me having to trawl through a massive document, think about uploading a document that you've got something and asking AI what's in there.
I've used Notebook LM, which is the variation on Gemini. I think it's still fundamentally Gemini. In a conversation I had with my cousins on my dad's side, one of whom is in Minnesota and the other in Switzerland. And they were throwing all of this back and forth information at me in email and attached PDFs and whatnot. It was a lot of noise. And then I wanted to turn around and explain what I had learned to the rest of my siblings. I threw it into Notebook LM and then asked questions. Boom. I don't need your summary. I have my assessment. Is this true? Did I remember that right? Brilliant. Yeah.
And what it also does with this, it will actually give you, it goes away and says, this name is common in this place, or what was happening at this time. So it gives you more information based around what you've been looking at. So gives you an idea about, okay, do you want me to go and look for this as well? Like, okay, I'll try that. And how about this now? It's like, that's not so relevant. What I'll do, I'll ask for this. So have a go. Just have a go with AI. It is seriously clever.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Thinking for the moment about what life must be like for the person who is taking that assistant role today, that back in the 70s or 80s, when many of us might have been young in our careers working for somebody else, and they would ask ridiculous questions like, no, that would take me weeks to figure out. Nowadays, first of all, can you get that job? Second, I expect the requests are ridiculous.
Seriously, other things
I'd like to hire those people.
Other things you can think of is things like will transcriptions. So upload a copy of a will and ask it to transcribe. And you might have to ask it a couple of times to get the transcription, because because they tend to give you a summary and sort of pull out the relevant points, which is really useful. And then it's give me a full transcription. I've also put in things like French baptisms and said, can you translate and transcribe this? And then gone on from there and added other information into it. So it's amazing what you can actually get it to pull out of the information you have access to.
I've found for my one place study, I put transcribing the census of a street at the moment. So as I was about to start, reading all that writing, and I thought, I'll just pop this into AI and just see if I call him if he can read that. Anyway, it was only, like, as you said, a couple of minutes, and it came back, and it's not perfect, it's but it's so close that it's a fantastic start. It's actually probably 80% of the job done. And we just sort of need to go in and just check it and make any changes that aren't quite right. But then it asked me, would I like a report on the occupations, how many people were in particular occupations, and I've got that, and and how many people died in a time period. And I mean, that would take me forever to do. Really, it's just one little part of the research, but it would just take me forever. So that was really great.
I can just think of so many projects now.
I know.
I used AI. There was a newspaper article in London Gazette that listed all of the names of the people that were decorated for the work they did during the First World War, be it military or civilian. And it was long. It was like over 10 pages and teeny, teeny, tiny type. And it took me quite a while to find her name. And then, so what I said was, how many of these were women? How many won the commander of the British Empire? And it was like, boom, as opposed to going through count. Like, is that a woman? Is that a It was just boom. And I thought, oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
It is a classic case of think different. What of our habits for research were based on card catalogs, like thumbing through things, physically sorting, physically arranging, and boom, just
Yeah.
think like you have a massive assistant with
I think it just
nothing
means
to
you
do.
can do more, can't you? It's like that takes so little time to actually do, right? Okay, now I've got that. What can I use that for? Or what can I do that I wouldn't have had the time to do before? And it sort of helps condense things,
No,
shorten things.
Exactly.
I think that's exactly right. I certainly am constantly asking myself, so great that I can do all these things so much faster. What is the benefit? What is the real, what am I going to do 10 times more things, or am I going to do something else completely different that never otherwise would have been touched? Yeah,
Or
it's a tough challenge.
has it identified something which makes me think that needs further investigation?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you
So for
just,
my one place study, sorry, Linda, you go, Linda.
no, I was just going to ask. So if I put in my name and I wonder what would come up.
You have to tell it. Find all
What,
newspaper articles mentioning Linda Tether or something like that, and see. Then it would go away and search the web, or you can give it information and information you already have, and say produce a summary of this.
and interesting. It wouldn't say much, I don't think. That'd be
You'd probably be
interesting.
surprised. You might
I
also
might have
find that
to
you
tune
share
in.
your name with a load of people that you didn't know about, because it will bring up lots of different
Yeah.
results.
No, that would be interesting. So would you give your maiden name or would you give your married name?
Both.
Both?
Both.
Both.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Might have to
Yeah.
try that. Yeah. Well,
it's
you did that
actually,
with your dog, Jennifer. When you remember when you had them write about your dogs?
I know, and it was
Yeah,
it
all
was
the things
erasure.
that, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wasn't expecting to get that back.
That was interesting.
Yeah. But for the one place study you're saying about you can do so much more, I always thought, wouldn't it be great to be able to transcribe the census of the whole town? And of course, that was absolutely impossible. So I thought, well, I'll do the streets that my people lived in, and there's only 3 streets. But I mean, I could do the whole town quite easily now with my assistant. You know,
The thing about doing
yeah,
projects like that is like you start thinking, well, if I'm doing something, is this of benefit to somebody else? And it's like, what do you
yeah,
do with that
yeah,
information? Because it's like you want the bits that are relevant to you, but if you're doing the whole town,
yes, yeah,
where would you put that? I mean, Ancestry and people like that have already got some things transcribed. You pay for them, so you have to start being sort of mindful, I think is probably the right word,
yeah,
of what
yeah,
information
yeah.
you end up with.
But I think for a one place study, you're wanting to look at everything that happened in that town, all the people, all the events, all the places in the town. So, um, and I've been recording that on a Substack, but I'm also going to put it into We Are as a site that will be my information will be there after I'm gone. That's my main thing, just to
yeah.
be able to put all the information about this town together for someone. Selfishly, I'm doing it to try and find out more about my family, of course, but I would like it all to be there in one place so that if someone's researching that family, some family or the place in 50 years' time, that there might be, a body of information that will all come up, like away from Ancestry or, away from all the busyness of all those other websites. Yeah, so
And
that's the plan, but
yours is a registered one place study, right? Through
yes,
Society for
yes,
One Place Studies. Yeah, I mean, I love the
yes,
concept of
yeah.
that.
Do you know what? I thought whilst we're doing this, I'll just try something. So I got Google Gemini, and it's like the place I live in. It's called Harrow House. It's basically there was a connection with India around here, so various houses are named after that. And I did a website a little while ago as part of a small, very small one place study, and it's like find all mentions of Harrow House online. And so basically, it's brought up something called Harrow House in Poplar in London, which has got a connection to filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock. No idea about that one. Harrow House in Tasmania. I knew there was a Harrow in Tasmania. And then the third one is me, and it's brought up the website that I've got there. So it's just like,
all right, there you go.
Yeah. And that's who knows what you can find when you start doing it.
And
exactly.
Yeah, this is why you do occasionally want to search for yourself just to see what privacy incursions have been in there.
But when you've got a name like mine, my name is actually quite common.
For you.
There's a few dozen people called Emma Cox. You might not necessarily think so, but there are a few. One is a journalist, I think. There's a couple of others who are relatively well known because I've got Google alerts that tell me when that comes up. So
yeah, no, good for you. And in many ways, I used to joke about the John Phillips rule, a colleague named John Phillips. And it's like this perfect name for the internet because that's the only way you can hide is to have a name that's everywhere, very, very common. And Cox is not that common, but it's not, people know how to spell it. People know how to pronounce it.
I've got that perfect name. It's everywhere.
There you go. It's, you can walk into a room and go where you need to go. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I used to go by Barbara Parker, my mother's maiden name. Oh. Parker's like that. Well, gosh, this has been a wonderful session. Thank you so much, Emma. These always lead us down pathways we never expect. And I'm going to be beavering away, writing up the notes over the next couple of hours and getting them out with the recording and up into projectkin.org/Emma Explores. And, there are some wonderful, wonderful archives in there now as we are coming up on year 2, I think, in maybe May, something like that, of doing these. And it's a reminder, just as it is with Journeys into Genealogy, of the extraordinary power of these archives to go back and say, hey, wait a minute. As it is, we are getting to recognize names like Jap, which I believe is one of your Scottish names. Is that right?
Yep.
And, know where the families are connected and where things pass through, and a reminder of what we can do with our own family stories, not to mention a deeper appreciation of the stories of others. So I want to thank you so much for everything you do with us, for us here at Project Kin, and welcome you to, it occurs to me, a little technology issue. I'll deal with that later. Thank you so much, and watch for the recording. We will be back with all of this again next month in another topic to be announced. How about that?
Yep. Thank you.
Again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.